much less developed. Even so, I knew the answer to both of her questions, no and no. A few weeks ago, I had boarded a huge, mysterious vehicle I had never seen before and trusted it to carry me through the air to the other side of the world, to a place I knew very little about. I was overwhelmed before I even boarded the airplane. I had never been to Kigali, Rwanda's capital city, where we would be flying out from. But even at nighttime, I could tell that it was larger than any town I'd ever seen. As we drove to the airport, an infinite field of lights rose up all around me. I could only imagine how big it looked in the daytime. The airport was monstrously large and full of people, a lot of them speaking English and other languages I didn't understand. Upstairs in the terminal, glass cases held cigars and candies and liquors and sodas in endless varieties. Stern-faced, uniformed men behind glass walls asked me all kinds of questions about where I was going and what I was doing there. They peered at my passport before waving me through to go meet my fate on that big white plane. How long will it take to get there? I asked Tony, my translator, at least 100 times. He would answer and pull out a map to show me where we were now and where we were going. But it did little to calm my anxiety. Have you ever been inside an airplane before? Yes, he smiled at me, anticipating my next question. What does it look like? He described rows of seats and windows with a driver in the front. Something that sounded like a really, really big bus, except for the part where it flew in the air. I couldn't quite wrap my mind around the image, though, until we climbed aboard. Tony found our seats and let me slide in first by the window, where I could see that ground was already several meters below us. I didn't sleep all night. I stared out that window the entire time, watching the ground as it fell out from under us, while an intense pressure pushed me back in my seat. And I didn't stop watching until the ground rose back up to hold the plane so that I could step out onto solid ground. After a whole night and day of travel, I exited the airplane through a long tunnel. At the end of that tunnel, I discovered a dizzying world beyond anything I'd ever imagined, even after all the stories I had heard about America. There were lights, so many lights, and voices yelling over loudspeakers in words I didn't understand. There were 1,000 white people. I had never seen so many before, even though I knew they wouldn't really use my head as alligator bait, as I had been warned as a child. I was still fearful at the sight of them. How would I speak to them? Would they even care what I had to say? "I'll be right here to help you the whole time," Tony reassured me, sensing my increased anxiety. After we picked up our bags, we made our way to the exit to find a car. Standing there was a lady holding up a sign that said, "Frederick." When she saw me, she started waving and calling, "Frederick! Frederick!" I knew a handful of people from the United States, but she wasn't one of them. I walked closer and asked her, "How do you know me?" "Charlene Gendry gave me a picture of you," she explained. "My name is Margaret. I'm going to be your driver." She grinned. I had never seen a lady drive a car before. In Rwanda today, you sometimes see women driving, but back then it seemed so strange to me. However, this trip had already been an adventure of many firsts, so I followed her to the car. As we loaded our luggage into Margaret's car, Tony announced, "Now we're getting close." We drove away from all of the people in the airport terminal, only to see just as many cars on the wide, flat road. There was row after row of very tall houses. No one at all was walking on the roads until we got to a smaller road. But even then, there were only a few people running and riding bicycles. No one was carrying goods on their heads to or from the market. I saw no burlap bags of charcoal, no baskets of avocados or bananas. Yet everyone seemed to be in a focused hurry to go somewhere. I had a hard time falling asleep that night, my first night in America. That was probably due, in part, to the television being on all night. I sat there in a dizzy daze.